I think it's symbolized by being here in this chapel. Although, having said that, I'm wondering if perhaps in future years we need to put it in a non-religious settings, but we'll have to decide, we'll have to look at it and talk about that. We have gathered here today, impelled by visions of the harmony of all people. We are children of many traditions, inheritors of shared wisdom and tragic misunderstandings, of proud hopes and humble successes. Now it is time for us to meet, in memory and truth, in courage and trust, in love and promise. In that which we share, let us see the common prayer of humanity. In that which we differ, let us wonder at the freedom of people. In our unity and our differences, let us know the uniqueness that is our spirit. May our courage match our convictions and our integrity match our hope. May our faith bring us closer together, closer to each other. May our meeting with past and present bring blessing for the future. Yesterday, I asked Mark Shakespeare from one of the Catholic churches in Bishop Stortford to read a poem, because he writes poems and they're very beautiful. So here's one that he wrote for this event, for what we're having today and in previous days in the area. Our theme, the Holocaust Memorial Day theme for this year is Stand Together. So he wrote a poem called The Travelers. They stand together, gathered around the legs, the feet of the petrified children, the unrecyclable coffee cups discarded by who knows who, the children marshaled by the fear of their parents in that time ago, the children riding the trains pulled by engines of steam powered by petrified trees, fear obligated to power, travelers to a foreign land, the kindness of strangers. The children set in stone have come in from the cold, unseen by the march of the commuters.
Probably many of you might not know, I'm actually Muslim. I come from Mauritius, and we had genocide in Mauritius in 1967-68, where Muslims were being killed. I was a baby then, so I'm not that old, but my parents had to protect us, and it was very scary and horrible time for them. My family managed to get out because of my mum. She was such a kind person. She used to look after the neighbours' kids because there was poverty. We were poor as well, but my mum had chickens and things like that. So used to give the family food, free food and things. So these people who were against us, against the Muslim, they actually protected us and managed to get us out. So they stood with us. They stood together with us. So I wouldn't be here now if they didn't. And then in '91, I started my training in St. Margaret's Hospital. I was called in because being Muslim, to look after the Bosnian refugees. I've met a lot of them and I looked after them. And the story they told me was horrendous. I still see them now, and they're all settled. They've got live children, and a lot of them lost their family back home, lost their teeth, broken hips. We had to patch them up. But it carried on. It carries on and carries on. Nothing ends. The reason I thought it'd be good to have this in here is to remind us, if we don't stand up together, we will never achieve anything.
In the late 30s, separately, they didn't know each other yet then. They eventually met in Israel and got married there. And they came from Central Europe. So my mother came from Austria and my father came from Hungary. And I thought I'd share with you something of their stories, because for me it sheds a more personal light on what happened just before the Holocaust. They were fortunate enough to get out before the Second World War started. But it does shed some light, and I think when we talk about personal stories, it makes it more personal for us as well. That's always my feeling. Are you okay there? So my mother was born in Vienna in 1925, and around 1938, well, before that, her father, who owned a shoe factory in Vienna, realized that things are not going to get any better. Unlike many Jews who said, oh, that'll be all right, and of course we're so friendly with especially in Germany, they're all our neighbors, they're our friends, and nothing can happen to us. So he realized that this wasn't going to happen and that he'd better get out. And the place to go to in those days was Palestine, yes, which was under the British mandate, under British rule, and that's where he decided to go. So he was very fortunate. He had the acumen to see what was happening and prepare for it. So he sold his factory, and I'm not quite sure how he managed to transfer the money eventually, to take the money with him, but he was very fortunate in being able to do so. And they applied for an exit visa for him, his wife, and their one daughter, my mother. So they applied for an exit visa sometime in '38, and they were told it was going to come. It's a process, it takes time. And at some point towards the middle of the year, a Nazi officer knocked on the door. And he said, I understand you've applied for a visa to leave. And I said, yes. And when do you think you're going to leave? Well, hopefully in a few months, certainly by the end of the year, by the end of '38. Why? And he said, well, I like your flat, and I would like to own it. So when you're ready to go, it's going to become mine. Okay? He didn't do anything further. Then came the pogroms in November '38. When, what we call Kristallnacht or pogrom night. And my mother remembered, she's no longer alive, but she remembered sitting at home, she and her parents. This was a Jewish house, all the flats belonged to Jews, and she remembers hearing the knocks on the door. Every door returned, and then they took out the men. Some of the men then returned, some didn't return. Nobody knocked at their door. They were sitting there, the three of them. A few weeks later, the Nazi officer turned up again. And he said, so what's happening with your visa? When are you leaving? And they said, well, it should be any day now. And so on. And then my grandfather said, can you tell me, why is it that nobody knocked on our door that on the 9th of November? And the officer said, oh, the flat is already in my name. And I never know what to do with this story. Hello, do come in. I never know what to do with this story. I mean, it's, 18. In Budapest, so just at the end of the First World War. And Budapest was supposed to be very friendly towards Jews, and it was in many ways. My grandfather was an ardent Zionist, very active Zionist. And at some point in the 30s, he was threatened that if he continues with his Zionist activities, which of course he couldn't stop, he was also editor of a Zionist newspaper in Hungarian, and so on. And he was threatened, and they said, we're going to send you to Siberia. So my grandfather decided to pack up and move to Israel. My uncle and aunt, I believe, they went to Israel in '33, and my grandparents in '36. My father in '36 was 18, and he wanted to study. And he wanted to finish his studies in Hungary because, of course, it was going to be all right. Nothing was going to happen. and he wanted to study Hebrew literature, as one does, being the son of poets, and artists and so on. Hebrew literature was not a subject which existed in the universities any longer. So he decided to settle for literature. Now, there was in Hungary and in many other countries at universities, there was something called the numerus clausus. They only let a certain percentage of Jews in. So there was no place to study literature for a Jew. So he looked for a subject where there were still spaces for Jews, and chemistry was one of them. So he became a chemist. He ended his life by writing lots of books, so the literary side obviously came. But that's what he did, and he finished his studies in 1939, in the summer of 1939, and then he went to Israel. Well, it was Palestine then, it wasn't Israel yet, because the state of Israel was only founded in 48. But he managed to get to Palestine and lived there in Jerusalem, where he met my mother. And the rest of the story is pretty obvious. But it was, of course, in the case of both my parents, their parents had the foresight to understand that they had to leave. But so many people didn't leave. And I was doing my family tree at one time, and with the aid of various cousins and members of my family on both sides of my family. The number of people who perished in the Holocaust is incredible, And then there were others who survived, but they survived by going to America, by going to Switzerland. There were one or two who survived in Vienna. I don't know that there were many of them left in Hungary. Very interesting. So, and it's just the story of one person. And, my parents didn't even personally suffer the worst of it. They were very fortunate in what happened to them. God, full of compassion, exalted God, God of forgiveness, gracious and merciful, abundantly patient and full of love, grant perfect rest under the wings of your presence to the souls of all our brothers and sisters, the pure and holy ones, who were killed and burned and strangled and buried alive. May their resting place be the Garden of Eden. Merciful God, shelter them forever under your loving care, and let their souls be bound up in the bond of eternal life. May their destiny be with you, and may they rest in peace. And let us say, and sanctified be the great name of the one by whose will the world was created. May God's rule become effective in your lives and in the life of the whole people of the world. May it be so soon, and let us say, Amen. May God's great name be praised to all eternity. Blessed and praised, glorified, exalted and extolled, lauded, honored and acclaimed be the name of the Holy One, who is ever to be praised, though far above the eulogies and songs of praise and consolation that human lips can utter. And let us say, Amen. May great peace descend from heaven and abundant life be granted to us and to all the world. And let us say, Amen. May the Most High, source of perfect peace, grant peace to us, to all people of the world, and to all our colleagues here together today. And let us say, Amen.